What's going on, gardeners? On today's 2-minute garden tip, I'm going to show you the correct way to water a container garden. As you can see, I have a fairly extensive container garden, but whether you have 1 or 100 plants in containers, there are a few do's and don'ts that you need to follow when you water them. When growing a container garden, one of the most important things you must do is to add a mulch layer to all of your containers. And the mulch layer is important because it blocks the sun from dehydrating the first few inches of soil. The mulch layer prevents the sun from scorching the surface of the soil, and it locks in the moisture by preventing evaporation, and what you'll have is a more evenly moist soil medium underneath. Now, how often you water your tree is going to depend on how hot your climate is. I live on the Carolina coast, so I'm going to need to water my plants more often than someone that lives in the upper Midwest or the Pacific Northwest, but I may not have to water as much as someone that lives in the desert Southwest. So it's up to you to determine when to water. And the way that we do this is by pulling back the mulch layer. As water evaporates from the potting medium, it loses volume and it begins to pull away from the sides of the container, which you can see here. When you start to see the potting medium pull away from the container, that's how you know that it's time to water. Now that you know it's time to water your container, you can't simply flood the container with water. That is because dry potting mixes are hydrophobic, which means they repel water. If you suddenly dump a lot of water into your container, the mix will not accept the water. It will repel the water and it will run out of the bottom drain holes. This is a problem because you're washing all of the nutrients and fertilizers out of your container, which will deplete the nutrient stores of the mix, leading to an unhealthy tree. And the way you get around this problem is by slowly introducing water into the containers, so the tops have enough time to moisten before you fully water them. So what I do is I go to 8 different plants and I spray a 1 to 2 second burst just on the top layer of the mulch, just so the soil can start sopping up the water. And usually by the time I get to my 8th plant, that gives the tree enough time to absorb that water and remove the hydrophobic condition. If you only have a couple of containers, lightly moisten the top layer of the soil, let the water soak in for 1 full minute, then simply come back and give it a full watering. Now that the containers have been primed by pre-moistening the top layer of soil, they are no longer hydrophobic and you can begin watering the containers without fear of washing out the nutrients inside. And that's how you properly water a container garden. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell to receive new video notifications, and check out our Amazon storefront and spread shop in the video description for a list of the gardening products I use and awesome custom designed apparel and other gear. Your support is greatly appreciated.